Imagine meeting yourself 5 years from now. One version is confident, financially free, respected, living the life you've always imagined. The other is still making excuses, still waiting, still wondering why nothing changed. Both versions started with the same dreams, the same potential, the same 24 hours. So what created such different lives? According to Earl Nightingale, the answer wasn't talent, it was habit. Because success doesn't choose people, it chooses patterns, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which patterns make success impossible to ignore. Success doesn't begin the day you get promoted. It doesn't begin when your business finally grows. It doesn't begin when people start believing in you. According to Earl Nightingale, success begins much earlier. It begins in complete silence, in moments that nobody applauds, in choices nobody notices, in habits so small they seem almost meaningless. Think about that for a second. If your future were determined not by your biggest decisions, but by the tiny actions you repeat every single day, would you still live the same way you do now? Most people spend years searching for the perfect opportunity, the perfect mentor, the perfect timing, the perfect idea. Yet they overlook the one thing that quietly shapes every result they'll ever experience: their habits. Earl Nightingale once observed that people become what they think about most. At first, that sounds like positive thinking, but it goes much deeper than optimism. Because whatever dominates your mind eventually controls your actions. And repeated actions become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes destiny. This happens whether you're aware of it or not. Imagine a ship crossing the middle of the ocean. The captain adjusts the compass by only a few degrees. The passengers don't notice. Nothing dramatic happens. The sea looks exactly the same. But after hundreds of miles, that tiny adjustment leads the ship to an entirely different continent. Your habits work exactly like that. One decision won't change your life, but 10,000 small decisions, repeated day after day, can completely transform who you become. This is why successful people often appear lucky. From the outside, you only see the destination. You never see the thousands of invisible habits that quietly carried them there. People admire confidence, but they don't see the habit of keeping promises to yourself. People admire discipline, but they don't see the mornings when nobody was watching. People admire success, but they ignore the years of consistency that created it. We live in a culture addicted to instant results. Everyone wants the transformation. Almost nobody wants the repetition. We celebrate overnight success stories, but we ignore the 10 years that came before the headlines. That's why so many people quit too early. They expect massive change after a few days. When it doesn't happen, they assume the process isn't working. But Earl Nightingale understood something timeless. The process is working, even when you can't see it. Think about planting a tree. For weeks, you see nothing. The ground looks unchanged. If you judged only by what your eyes could see, you'd believe nothing was happening. Yet beneath the surface, roots are spreading. Strength is growing. The foundation is quietly preparing for visible growth. Your habits work exactly the same way. Long before the world notices your success, your character is being built in private. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you strengthen something invisible. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust with yourself. Every time you finish what you started, you become someone who naturally finishes difficult things. And here's what makes this so powerful. Success isn't attracted to occasional effort. It's attracted to consistency. Most people think successful individuals have extraordinary willpower. The truth is often much simpler. They removed the need to constantly make difficult decisions. They turned the right choices into automatic habits. Instead of asking, "Should I read today?" reading became part of who they were. Instead of asking, "Should I work on my goals?" working on their goals became as natural as brushing their teeth. That changes everything. Because habits reduce resistance, the less energy you spend deciding, the more energy you spend progressing. This is where average lives quietly separate from extraordinary ones, not through intelligence, not through luck, but through repeated daily behaviors. Imagine two people standing in exactly the same place today. They earn similar incomes, they have similar abilities, they even share similar dreams. One decides to improve by just 1% every day, reading 10 pages, learning one new idea, practicing one valuable skill, reflecting every evening. The other tells himself, "I'll start next week." A year later, their lives no longer resemble each other, not because one experienced a miracle, but because one respected the incredible power of tiny improvements. This is what Earl Nightingale wanted people to understand. Your future isn't built in dramatic moments. It's built inside ordinary days, inside routines that feel insignificant, inside decisions that nobody celebrates, because every habit is quietly casting a vote, not just for what you do, but for who you become. And once you understand that, you stop chasing shortcuts. You begin building a life that success has no choice but to notice. But here's the habit that changes everything first. It begins inside your own mind. *2. High retention. Habit 1. Guard your mind every day. It begins long before your hands take action, long before your calendar changes, long before your life changes. It begins with the conversations no one else can hear, every single day. A voice is shaping your future, not your boss, not your family, not society, your own mind. Earl Nightingale believed the greatest battle isn't fought in the outside world. It's fought inside your thinking, because every action you take is first accepted by your mind. If your thoughts are filled with doubt, your actions become hesitant. If your thoughts are ruled by fear, your opportunities begin to look like risks. If your thoughts constantly tell you you're not ready, you'll spend your life waiting for permission that never comes. Think about this. Two people can face the exact same challenge. One sees a reason to quit, the other sees a reason to grow. The situation didn't change, only the interpretation did. And that interpretation determines everything that follows. Most people believe they're reacting to life. In reality, they're reacting to the stories they've been repeating inside their minds for years. I'm too late. I'm not talented enough. People like me never succeed. I'll probably fail anyway. Repeat those thoughts long enough, and your brain starts treating them as facts instead of opinions. That's how invisible prisons are built. Not with walls, but with repeated beliefs. Now imagine the opposite. What if every morning, instead of feeding your fears, you deliberately trained your mind to search for possibilities? Not fake positivity, not pretending problems don't exist, but choosing to focus on what you can control. This is where powerful habits begin. Successful people don't wake up feeling unstoppable every day. They wake up with the same doubts everyone else has. The difference: they refuse to let those doubts become permanent residents. They replace them with better questions. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" they ask, "What if this challenge teaches me something that changes my life?" Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," they ask, "How can I become better today than I was yesterday?" That small shift changes the direction of your entire life, because your brain is always looking for answers. Ask powerless questions, and you'll receive powerless answers. Ask empowering questions, and your mind starts searching for opportunities instead of excuses. Here's something fascinating. Your mind cannot hold two dominant thoughts at the same time. The moment you intentionally focus on growth, Fear begins losing its grip the moment you focus on solutions. Complaints lose their power. The moment you focus on progress, perfection stops controlling you. That's why one of the most valuable habits you can build is protecting what enters your mind. Think about how carefully people protect their money, their homes, their phones. Yet many leave the doorway to their minds completely unguarded. Every day they consume endless negativity, constant comparison, outrage, drama, voices telling them they aren't enough. Then they wonder why confidence disappears. Your mind is like fertile soil. It doesn't choose what grows. It simply grows whatever you plant repeatedly. Plant fear, you'll harvest hesitation. Plant excuses, you'll harvest regret. Plant discipline, you'll harvest confidence. Plant possibility, you'll harvest opportunity. This isn't magic, it's repetition. And repetition is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. Every book you read, every conversation you have, every video you watch, every person you spend time with, they're all programming your future, one thought at a time. So ask yourself, if your habits remain exactly the same for the next 5 years, will your life become the one you've been dreaming about? Or are your daily thoughts quietly leading you somewhere you never intended to go? Because here's the truth, most people never hear. You don't accidentally create an extraordinary life, you intentionally build it. One thought, one decision, one habit at a time. And once you've learned to master your mind, the next habit becomes unstoppable because it teaches you how to take action even when you don't feel like it. Asterisk, Part 3, High-ish 2. Take action before you feel ready. Most people have a dangerous misunderstanding about success. They believe action comes after confidence, that one day they'll finally feel ready to start the business, ready to write their book, ready to change their life, ready to become the person they've always imagined. But that day rarely comes, because confidence isn't the beginning of action. Confidence is the reward for action. Earl Nightingale understood this long before modern psychology began explaining why. He knew something that most people spend decades discovering. The people who seem fearless are usually just people who kept moving while they were afraid. Think about the first time you learned to ride a bicycle. You didn't wait until fear disappeared. You climbed on anyway. You wobbled. You fell. You got back up, and with every attempt, something incredible happened. Your fear became smaller. Your confidence became stronger. Not because someone motivated you, but because action taught your brain that progress was possible. Life still works exactly the same way. Every dream waits behind a door called uncertainty, and most people never open it, not because the door is locked, but because they're waiting to feel brave enough. Here's the irony. The courage they're waiting for exists on the other side of the door. Imagine standing at the edge of a cold lake. You tell yourself, I'll jump in when it feels warm. You could stand there all day, the water won't change. Eventually you realize, the only way to adjust to the temperature is to step in. Success works exactly like that. Waiting doesn't make difficult things easier, it only makes them feel heavier. Every day you delay, the dream grows larger in your imagination, and you grow smaller in your own eyes. That's why procrastination is so destructive. It's rarely about laziness, it's about protecting yourself from discomfort. Your brain prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. Even if your current situation makes you unhappy, it still feels predictable. And the human mind naturally mistakes predictability for safety. That's why people stay in jobs they hate, remain trapped in routines that drain them, keep postponing goals that matter most, not because they're incapable, but because their comfort zone quietly convinces them that standing still is safer than moving forward. Earl Nightingale challenged that belief. He believed every meaningful achievement begins with a decision, not a feeling. A decision to act before certainty arrives. A decision to move before every answer appears. A decision to trust the process instead of demanding guarantees, because guarantees don't exist, not for entrepreneurs, not for artists, not for athletes. Not for anyone who's ever created something extraordinary. Every remarkable life has one thing in common. Someone chose progress over perfection. Think about the greatest builders in history. They didn't begin by seeing the finished masterpiece. They began with a single brick. One brick, then another, then another. No audience, no applause, no certainty. Just consistent action. That's how every extraordinary life is built. One ordinary day at a time. One disciplined choice at a time. One uncomfortable step at a time. And here's what makes this habit so powerful. Action changes your identity every time you do something difficult. You silently tell your brain, I'm someone who follows through. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens that identity. Every excuse you overcome weakens the old version of you eventually. Discipline stops feeling like effort. It starts feeling like who you are. This is why successful people often appear unstoppable. Not because life became easier, but because they stopped negotiating with themselves. When it's time to work, they work. When it's time to learn, they learn. When it's time to improve, they improve. Their habits make the decision before emotions have a chance to interfere. Imagine how different your life would become if you stopped asking, do I feel motivated today? And started asking, what does the person I want to become do next? That single question can redirect an entire future because every answer leads to action. And every action becomes evidence of your new identity. This is the hidden secret Earl Nightingale wanted people to understand. You don't become successful because you occasionally make the right decision. You become successful because the right decision becomes your default habit. And when that happens, success no longer feels like luck. It becomes inevitable. But there's one habit even more powerful than taking action because it determines whether you'll keep going when the excitement disappears. Part 4. High retention. Habit 3. Stay consistent. When no one is watching, here's the moment where most people lose. Not at the beginning, not when life gets difficult, but after the excitement fades. The first day is easy. The first week feels inspiring. The first few victories make you believe you're unstoppable. Then something changes. The progress slows, the compliments disappear. The results become invisible, and suddenly, the habit that once felt exciting starts feeling ordinary. This is where dreams quietly die, not because people lack ability, but because they mistake a lack of excitement for a lack of progress. Earl Nightingale understood that consistency is tested most when nothing seems to be happening. Anyone can stay motivated after a big win. Anyone can work hard when the world is applauding. But can you keep showing up when nobody notices? Can you keep improving when your efforts receive no recognition? Can you keep believing when the evidence hasn't appeared yet? Because that's where extraordinary people separate themselves, not through talent, not through intelligence, but through endurance. Imagine a sculptor standing before a massive block of stone. He swings his hammer, nothing, nothing. 20 times, 30 times, 50 times. To anyone watching, it looks pointless. Then suddenly, one final strike, the stone cracks in half. People think that last hit created the breakthrough. It didn't. Every strike mattered. The final blow was only possible because of the hundreds that came before it. Your habits work the same way. Every workout, every chapter you read, every skill you practice. Every early morning, every difficult conversation, every promise you keep to yourself. They are invisible strikes against the stone. One day, the breakthrough arrives. People call it luck. They say, "You became successful so fast." They never saw the thousands of moments that made it possible. This is one of the greatest illusions in life. We notice results. We rarely notice repetition. And repetition is where greatness is born. Think about nature. A river doesn't cut through solid rock because it's stronger than the stone. It cuts through because it never stops flowing day after day, year after year, without rushing, without complaining, without asking if today's effort is enough. It simply keeps moving. Eventually, even mountains give way. Now ask yourself, what could happen if you approached your goals the same way? Not chasing perfection, not demanding instant rewards, just becoming impossible to stop. Imagine the version of you who never misses the important habits, not because life is easy, but because your standards are stronger than your excuses. That person doesn't rely on motivation. They rely on systems. They don't wake up asking, "Do I feel inspired today?" They already know what must be done, and they do it, rain or sunshine, good mood or bad mood, success or failure. Their emotions may change. Their standards do not. That's the hidden power of consistency. It removes emotion from the equation because emotions are temporary, habits are permanent. And permanent habits create permanent results. Earl Nightingale often reminded people that success is not an event, it is a process. A process repeated so many times, it becomes your identity. Think about the strongest oak tree in a forest. It wasn't built during one perfect season. It survived storms, harsh winters, relentless winds, years of unseen growth beneath the surface. That's why it stands when weaker trees fall. Your character is no different. Every challenge you refuse to run from adds another ring to your strength. Every setback you refuse to surrender to deepens your roots. Every ordinary day you choose discipline over comfort makes you harder to break. And one day you'll look back and realize something incredible. The habits you once struggled to maintain have become the very foundation of your life. You'll no longer force yourself to grow. Growth will simply be who you are. But there is one final habit. The habit Earl Nightingale believed turns ordinary effort into an extraordinary life. It's the habit that determines whether success visits you once or stays with you forever. And once you understand it, you'll never measure your life the same way again.